Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's weekly outlook. We're going to take a peek at the week ahead, precipitation chances, temperature forecasts, and also take a peek at the long term here as well. Take a peek into late February into early March. So go ahead and get started here first and foremost. Welcome to the stream. Be sure to hit that like button. We would appreciate that. It helps the algorithm into our favor. So that would be really appreciated if you guys hit the like button. So first and foremost, upcoming week looks fairly quiet in terms of any significant weather. Not expecting anything in terms of significant snowfall, not expecting any significant rain as well, but we do have a chance for some snow in the UP and also some rain throughout the later portions of this week. So go ahead and start with temperatures. All right. So we have all this cold air up here in Canada. We see it here highlighted in blue, pink, white. So those are your cold air. Down here in the United States, we have the outline here. Michigan is over here, but I'm circling my mouse over here. That is Michigan. Okay. So taking a peek into the long term, or through this week, should I say, we're going to see that cold air in Canada is still up in Canada. It does not protrude down into the United States. We do see the mild air start to fill up for the upcoming week. This is Tuesday. We start seeing southern Michigan here in the low to mid 40s here, potentially reaching 50. I think it's going to hit 50 this week for southern Michigan at the very least. But overall, it's going to be a pretty mild week. We see that warm air kind of linger around, keeps trying to fill back in. This is going to be Wednesday. We see a better chance here of some temperatures into the low to mid 50s for southern Michigan, all the way up in toward the Grand Rapids area, over toward Flint, over toward Mount Pleasant. You guys might hit 50 up there, but if you're up in the UP, you're going to be probably in the 40s, maybe upper 30s. But I think you guys are going to make it into the 40s there for northern Michigan as well as the UP. But southern Michigan and central Michigan will have a shot to hit into the mid 50s on Wednesday. And then continuing through the week, we go into Thursday. This is where we're going to start watching the system that kind of works its way slowly to our south. We see a center of a low pressure here. It's kind of a low pressure, not very well defined, but you can see the center of it right here. Moves into the area, and it does bring a chance of some rain showers. Now, I don't think temperatures are going to be cold enough for snow, but we do have some snow chances for lake effect after the system passes because the winds will turn out of the northwest. So we continue into Friday. We see that system kind of meets another system up in Canada. We do see some cold air try and fill in behind it, but doesn't protrude into the U.S. very long. And then that will reach the UP. So UP could be quite cold on Friday. It could be in the teens, maybe in the low 20s there for a high on Friday. But southern Michigan, central Michigan, lower peninsula, you guys are going to be probably in that high 20s, low 30s. And that is the only day I see a potential for winter-like temperatures, more so cold temperatures. Moving to Saturday, we see the rebound temperatures start filling right back in. We see, again, mid 30s here. And then as we move into the early parts of next week, here's the big warm up we've been talking and watching about. Now, the big question is how far north and how long does this last? So into early next week, we do see Sunday here. Next Sunday, we see, again, 40s and then 50s right on the doorstep there in Illinois, Indiana. We continue into Monday. We see a lot of cold air still up in Canada. It's going to battle the air masses, cold air versus warm air. How far north will that warm air work? But as we move into the early parts of next week, again, we're flirting with those warm temperatures. Now, we go back one or two model runs, we're going to see those warm temperatures do, in fact, get into Michigan. And then also one thing we're keeping an eye on is later into the mid to later parts of next week, we do have a pretty significant system here out into the plains that we're kind of watching closely here. If we can get enough warm air into Michigan, we could be talking some rain, possibly some storm chances again for next week, but that's getting into the long term. The potential is there. I want to show you guys this. Michigan on this latest model run does show we're in the 30s for this time frame. But if I go back here to this earliest morning's model run, I go ahead and move this forward, we're going to see Michigan it gets into those warm temperatures right here. There we go. That's Monday. We're hitting 60. We have 70s on our doorstep there. So all these models, even the Euro, this is a GFS model I'm showing you right now, but even the European model is showing a big warm up happening for early next week. So it's something to keep an eye on. We could have a multi-day warm up here. And then that system does develop. It swings a cold front through. We could have a moist and maybe unstable air mass in place. Again, getting ahead of ourselves here. It's a possibility, but not very confident in anything happening just yet, but something to watch in the early parts of next week. So overall, that is your week ahead. Thursday, rain chances. Go ahead and take you into the precipitation depiction so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about here. I'm going to find it right here. We're going to take a zoom in look to the Midwest, not the Southeast, I want the Midwest. There we go. Okay, this is your precipitation type. The blue is obviously snow, green is obviously rain. So we're moving through the early parts of this week. Tuesday, nothing. We do have some scattered rain showers that develop here Wednesday night into Thursday. There is your rain chances for southern Michigan. Again, I think that's going to be a little bit further north than what this model is showing. As that system passes off to the east, so there's your lake effect snow that starts kicking up for the UP, potentially parts of northern Michigan there as well. Again, as far as accumulations go, it shouldn't be significant, but again, with lake effect in the UP, anything can happen with that. So keep an eye on that into the later parts of next weekend for the UP and northern Michigan. But right now, nothing significant is expected. Overall, the upcoming week will be pretty quiet. Again, forecast based out of Lansing, we're looking at 40 degrees tomorrow, 48 on Tuesday, 53 for a high on Wednesday. And then Wednesday night into Thursday morning, we start seeing those rain chances there. And then after that, it's going to be cold for about 1 or 2 days. Friday, Saturday, make it back into the 30s, maybe 20 degrees further north you go. And then as we get into Sunday, Monday of next week, we're going to be talking about that big warm up possibility as well. So that is your week ahead. Now, in terms of the long term, how is it looking into later February into early March? So our forecast models for predicting like rain, snow really don't do well past 5, 7 days, right? We talk about pattern forecasting that can be up to about 3 or 4 weeks in advance. So that's what we're going to do right now. Taking a look at two different things here. I want to take this off the screen and take this right back. Number one being, I want to show you guys the Arctic oscillation. I need to go pull it up. I lost my spot here. I did have it, but I lost it. There we go. This is your Arctic oscillation. We take a peek at this very often here. As long as it stays above this middle point, you'll see a black line dividing the top half of the chart and the bottom half of the chart. We see this line, that's your model ensemble. 51 members are ran, and that is what the 51 members are really converging on, basically. So we see the Arctic oscillation stays positive, which will allow us to stay warm. And it does support this big warm up we're talking about next week and also into this week as well. We're going to be in the 50s more than likely for a pretty large portion of southern and central Michigan here Tuesday, Wednesday, but possibly Tuesday as well. So again, the positive AO, the Arctic oscillation, we'll call it AO for short, that does support the warm temperatures here. The positive AO allows warm air to stay in the United States, where negative AO will allow cold air from Canada to penetrate further south. So the longer that stays positive, the better. But as we get into the later parts of this month, toward the end of this graph here, we're looking at March 1st at this point in the graph right here. I move my mouse. That is your March 1st time frame. We start kind of seeing a dip back toward the neutral, almost in the negative phase there. So into early March will be kind of when that confidence kind of lessens a little bit. But again, right on that March 1st, second time frame would be probably the time to start looking for maybe a pattern shift back to some cooler temperatures. But again, that's not very high confidence just because we've been positive for so long. But again, I want to show you guys this as well. The new CPC outlook, the Climate Prediction Center here, does show Michigan, if you can tell, and parts of Wisconsin here as well. We are in a very high category, probability, should I say, for above average temperatures. Now, the color doesn't necessarily indicate how warm or how cold, it just indicates a percentage of above or below average temperatures. So this contour here in Michigan is showing 80 to 90% probability of above average temperatures between February 26th and March 3rd. So this is quite significant here. I'll show you why on this next graph I'm going to pull up here. Just made this before I hopped on here. This is an average chart here of temperatures throughout Detroit and Alpena. So the reason that this is so important here is as we get into March, the temperature on February 1st, for example, was 31 degrees. So an above average temperature would be 32 degrees. Make sense? The temperature here for March 1st is 39 degrees. By March 15th, it's 44 degrees. And by March 31st, it's 51 degrees. So the longer that we start seeing these climate models and climate forecast above average, you got to think along with the seasonal changes here, above average is going to be starting to increase here as we get into March significantly here. It climbs 12 degrees. That's pretty significant. And over in Alpena, it doesn't really change much, but it's still by the end of the March there, you're still at 45 degrees up in northern Michigan as well. So that's really significant when you come to think of it. So just because we're starting to get into the seasonal changes here, just because we have a negative AO and a negative just like teleconnections in general, as long as they stay negative, you got to think though with seasonal changes, it's not going to support as cold of temperatures as what it would be, say, December or January or say February as well. So March, April, May, we're starting to get into spring months here. Not going to say we're done with winter yet, but at this point in time, I think that the chances for prolonged winter weather are pretty much over. I'm not going to say it's not going to snow. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying for a prolonged cold stretch that's going to support significant snowfall, I do not see that pattern here through the early to mid parts of March. I do not see it anywhere. If we look at one more thing here, I can pull up a graph here of what we call anomalies for temperature and also storm systems. I got to find it here real quick. I thought I had this, but I do not have it. Let's take a peek at this. Nope. I got to pull it back up. I had it pulled up and I lost my spot. There we go. So first and foremost, this is basically an average chart. So when you see these colder colors here, actually I'll switch it over here to the temperature. There we go. So the warm temperatures here are above average, and then obviously the greens and blues are below average. So we start moving this through the time frame here. Again, this is an extended model here. So we see a large portion of the U.S. here in above average temperatures. Now, this is again from February 26th to March 4th. But as we move into later parts of March, we start seeing these signals here for a cool down. This is from March 7th to March 14th. So we still see those warmer colors there for a large portion of the U.S. So this model here is saying that we're going to stay warm into March, but as we get further into March, we see that kind of change back into a neutral type of color, and then we start seeing those colder colors start to fill in for mid to later parts of March. Again, this is a long-term forecast. It's not going to be set in stone, but if this were to say to come to pass, and it's true, we're still going to be above average. Remember what we talked about 5 minutes ago? The average temperature is about 50 degrees at the end of March here. So even though we're seeing these signals here for a cool down, 50 degrees is average. So anything below that would be, blue. So we're not seeing a big signal for cold. That's all I'm trying to say here. So overall, I think winter is over. I really do. I'm not saying no more snow. I'm not saying any more days below freezing. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying for significant snowfall, significant cold, I don't see it coming. So that's all I got for you guys for right now. Any questions regarding anything I talked about? I'll be happy to answer them. But overall, that is everything I wanted to cover. Again, upcoming week seems pretty quiet. Thursday, you got precip chances. That's about it. Warm up is coming. Cool down for next weekend. And again, a warm up back, potential warm up, should I say. The models are kind of splitting themselves this afternoon because we had a multi-day runs of above average temperatures for early next week. Then this morning and then afternoon's models have kind of backed off on that just a bit, but we'll have to watch that pattern just because I think it's supported here by quite a bit of stuff here. So I do think we're going to warm up here next week as well. But anyway, that's all I got for you guys. So if you're heading out, hit the like button. If you got questions, I'll stick around for a while and answer them. But if no questions, I'm going to go ahead and hop off here. So now is the time. I want to take a look back here. Taking a peek back here at the last model when I was showing you guys early on in the forecast here, and I do want to point this out. Now, keep an eye over here. We'll go ahead and zoom in. Actually, we'll go ahead and zoom into the Great Lakes region. Playing around with this, moving across for early next week here. This is where I was talking about here. This is what the model had yesterday night into this morning. We see these temperatures here. Boom, there's one. This is Monday. We're seeing low to mid 50s, even high 50s down here, 60 degrees just across the border, Indiana. And then also moving into Tuesday, we see again an increase here. We're in the mid 60s for next Tuesday, according to this model. And 70s are just off here into the plains there. And then moving to Wednesday, that cold front swings across there. Again, we're in the mid 60s here. So if this comes to pass, we're talking a multi-day warm up. But then again, that cold front's sharp, which is what we're kind of watching, keeping an eye on for a storm lover. That's what you want to see. So, but as that moves across, we'll keep an eye on that. But again, the latest models have kind of backed off on that idea. Here's a latest model here through next week here. I'll go ahead and move it forward. There's Monday. Again, there's your warm air off to the south. And then here's Tuesday. It kind of starts, it flirts with the border, honestly, of Indiana and Ohio there. And then here's Wednesday. Wow, Wednesday for this model has 70 degrees down here just across the border. If you're in Berrien or Cass County, you look to get in the 50s there, then one county south is 70 degrees. It's a pretty sharp gradient there. So again, we'll keep an eye on that pattern and see how that trends. But overall, I do think there's a good chance we warm up for again early next week. No, Peter, we did not have a big winter this year. Um, that's largely due because of the El Nino, the Enzo pattern. El Nino winters do not favor snowfall at all. So this is not surprising at all. But if you look at the overall precipitation maps for this winter, the only area that's below average is the UP. If you go to Detroit, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Flint, all of those places are above average right now in terms of precipitation for the winter. In terms of snow, place in Michigan that has above average snowfall. Yeah, Angelina, I don't know if you've read what we posted on our Facebook page. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. We actually gave our thoughts on what this upcoming storm season is going to look like. In fact, it is pinned on our page if you want to go read it. It's Michigan Storm Chasers on Facebook. It is a featured post, and it starts with what might storm season 2024 hold. Put a lot of work into that, but it gives really good insight as to what we could be looking at in the upcoming severe season. All right, guys, I don't see much in the way of any questions. I'll ask one more time. If anybody has questions, now it's time to drop them in chat. Otherwise, I'm going to hop off here in about another minute. So, hey, Drew, I do think we're going to be in the warm sector for late February. I think the only real concern with that, we can talk more in private too about this, but with the Great Lakes, their record levels in terms of temperatures right now, but still they're cold, so they don't really support warm frontal advancement. And I've seen it happen so many times, especially on Lake Erie, where a warm front just refuses to move north because of the lakes are just so cold. But also there's a lot of wind stuff, a lot of local dynamics involved with that. But as long as those warm fronts are strong enough to advance north, we should be just fine getting the warm sectors. Peter, if the current Enzo forecast, which is again your La Nina and El Nino, that has a big impact on the climate for the whole United States, but for Michigan in particular, we're going to be going from from an El Nino to a La Nina here this spring. A La Nina typical year would mean Michigan would be warm and wet, so above average temperatures, above average precipitation. Those are your typical La Nina. So I don't see a hot and dry summer at this point. Again, we're still a long ways out. This is just pure historical pattern forecasting. But again, a big reason why we went dry this winter, or should I say less snowfall this winter and warm this winter, has been because of El Nino, and that's typical. So same thing applies to summer with La Nina. I would expect a more warm and wet type of summertime. No severe storms in this forecast, but we could be looking at something potentially next week. Be a very, very, very low threat, but I think it'd be more like a storm threat, not a severe threat. But again, I have to kind of watch and wait for early next week. All right, guys, I'm gonna hop off here. So I appreciate you guys watching. We'll be right back on here next Sunday night, 7 o'clock, for another weekly update. We'll go over again the long term, the week ahead. Hope you guys join us there. But otherwise, I'm out of here. So thanks guys for watching. Hit that like button on your way out. Appreciate you guys.